roll the roll and go. Where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. I am so grateful you have chosen to listen to me and to go on the travels and see the things and go to the museums that we have managed to go through for the last 2 seasons. I have really enjoyed doing this podcast, and I hope you stick with me. It makes me happy to know that people are enjoying what I do. On another note, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we are on Facebook at Where Am I to Go podcast. We have lots of pictures. We have places that we go that we don't do podcasts on. And we have lots of things to see and think about when you decide you're going to travel or if you're just interested in learning about different places that we go. Also, we have an email account at whereamitigopodcast@gmail.com. And if anybody has any comments, ideas, thoughts, you are more than welcome to email me there, and I will do my best to answer, and we'll see where everything goes this season. I've got some neat things lined up, and I hope everybody is ready to go for a museum tour ride. Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we're in Tucson, and there's this museum here that is about neon, and neon lights, neon signage. And Jude has said that he would take us through this museum, talk to us about it, and educate us on neon. It is something I'm not very educated on, but I've seen it all my life. So I guess we're going to have a learning experience. Thank you for taking your time with us, Jude, and let's get started.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, so what made you start a neon sign museum?
I started making signs in 1972.
So you're a manufacturer of these
That's
things?
what I do for a living.
Really?
Yeah, I started hand painting in 1972, learning the trade, and then I started my own business in 1976 in Iowa. And then we moved out here after the winter of 82, 83. We moved out here after the winter of 82, 83, which was brutal in Iowa, and I restarted out here. And we expanded from sign painting into electrical signs and eventually into neon signs. So about 5 years ago, we had a 40th anniversary party at my shop for the business, and we got everything that I had lit or would light lit up at the shop, and we had just a good response to it. And so it kind of planted the seed. We started looking for property about 5 years ago and spent 2 years looking for a building. We finally stumbled onto this building on a Sunday morning, and it fit the criteria. It was clean, it was in good shape, it didn't need to be completely rebuilt, and we made an offer on it and bought the building in October of 2017, and then we opened. It took us a year getting started, and we've since added a lot of stuff, but we got opened up, and so we've been open for a little over 3 years.
Okay, and are you still making signs?
Yeah, I still have a full-time job doing that. That's my other 60 hours a week.
Oh, so okay, I get it.
No, and that's where a lot of this stuff. A lot of this is a result of having been in the business for 50 years. I started collecting signs in 1974, and I just kept things. I kept things I liked,
right.
And I kept a lot of small things because signs get big. So a lot of the first things you'll see here are things that I've had potentially up to 40, 45 years now. The big stuff, when we get into the back, largely arrived in the last 5 years.
Okay. So now you started off just painting signs.
Right.
And then you moved into...
You build up a clientele of painting signs,
right.
Customers, and then we got into vinyl graphics because that's what the trade did. And then customers would say, well, I need an electrical sign. So I started brokering them, and then I started realizing that with a little bit of equipment, I could start building them. And then I had a guy I connected with that does neon, and so I started incorporating neon into some of the things we did. And I just kept building and adding on, and now we've got 12 people working. I've got 3 service trucks, and we've got a metal shop and a wood shop and the vinyl graphics.
You kind of cover everything.
We're a really small, big shop.
That's cool.
It's interesting. We get into a lot of stuff.
Okay, now explain to me neon. I don't really. I know it when I see it,
Okay.
or at least I think I know it when I see it, because some signs are just electric signs, are they not?
Right.
That actually look like neon.
Right. Well, there are LED things that are getting reasonably good and looking like neon, but they're still not neon. Neon is handmade and still handmade, every piece.
Okay.
There's
Now the glass. Do you buy tubes or do you
the
blow
glass? The glass comes in. Most of the glass comes in 4-foot sticks, and it's already colored or whatever. There's a variety of colors available, but it comes in just straight sticks. And then what you do is you design your sign, you take your pattern, you reverse it, because you always work face down, because you have jumps that have to come up off the surface. So we
Okay.
always work face down. And you pick the color of the tube you're going to do. You do all of your fabrication. You weld on electrodes. You hook it up to a 20,000 volt transformer. You heat it up to 400 degrees. You pump it to evacuate the contamination out of it. You introduce either argon or neon, which are the two gases we use. And in argon, you put in a little tiny bit of mercury, which makes it brighter. And there you're done.
Okay. So where does the light come from?
So
From
what
the mercury
happens?
and the neon?
What happens is when you hook electricity up to a vacuum tube with argon and neon, it excites the gas and creates light. There's no wire running through neon.
Okay.
There's wires at each end, but you're just exciting the gases that are in the glass. It's
Okay.
a vacuum tube. It's
Is
like
it kind of like a fluorescent bulb?
It's basically a fluorescent bulb, only it's handmade.
Okay. And so now you take these tubes and you weld them together.
Yeah.
How do you bend them?
So we use 3 different types of fires. We use a ribbon fire, which typically is about 16 inches long, and you can adjust how much flame you've got. And we use a crossfire, which is 10 to 12 jets that aim into a concentrated point, which is for real tight curves. And then we use a cannon fire, which is a cross between. It's a little bit like a ribbon, like a crossfire, but it does bigger. It gives you a little more flexibility. So we use 3 different types of fires to actually bend the glass. Then you heat it up, and then you keep it from collapsing on itself by putting a cork in one end and what's called a blow hose on the other. You stick one end in your mouth and the other end to the other end of the glass, and you're not blowing it. All you're doing is keeping pressure in the glass so that it stays expanded out to a round. Because as you bend it, it wants to collapse.
Right.
Right. So you're not blowing glass, you're bending glass.
Okay. This sounds like a totally
It's
fascinating
voodoo.
process.
It's totally voodoo. You're limited in how big of a piece of glass you really want to bend. You don't really want more than 8 foot. And the reason you don't want more than 8 foot is it's hard to what we call pump it, which is to vacuum it out and introduce a glass. So and the sticks are 4 foot. So typically, if you're doing much of anything, you're going to weld a couple pieces together, and you take the 2 pieces of glass, you heat them together up on the torch, and you push them together.
And then they just adhere to each other.
Well, there's probably more to it than that. I'm not a neon bender, so I'm talking on the surface, but that's what it basically amounts to. And then you do the same thing. The electrodes, we buy them in a case, and you heat them up together, and you put them together, and you heat them a little bit longer, and they actually melt together.
Okay.
So it's parts.
And then you just pump the gas in. Now, is the gas in there under high pressure, low pressure,
Not much
no
pressure. It's not much pressure. And I'm talking a little bit out of my hat because I can't give you all that detail. But yeah, it's not a lot of pressure, but it is a vacuum tube, so it is under pressure.
Okay. Is it under vacuum or is it under pressure?
It's probably under vacuum, but you know what? I'm above my pay grade now.
Okay. No, I just...
You're asking stuff I can't answer, but my neon guys could.
Okay. No, it's just a curiosity thing.
That's a good question. I haven't been asked it, and I don't know the answer per se, but I'll find out later.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good. Well, let's take a look at some of the signs you've got, some of the things you've got in here. It's bright in here with lots of different colors.
It's a lot of different stuff, and we have neon is definitely the draw.
Right.
But the industry across the board, the industry does amazing things, and that's part of what I've been intrigued with. Is I've collected. I'm not just neon. I'm anything I like. So if it's interesting and it's advertising, I collect it. And I'm not limited to periods of time. I've got stuff that's only 15, 20 years old, but it's good design. If it's got neon or it's good design and it doesn't have neon, if it warrants saving, I will save it because it's got value. You know, things that we didn't used to collect, we didn't used to collect plastic signs.
Right.
Well, plastic signs now have reached a point where that's what people relate to because that's what they grew up with. So it's a younger generation, but there's value in that stuff. I've got some really nice formed plastic clocks, formed faces, colors I've never seen before. We'll see some of that when we get back into the warehouse. But I've also collected, rubber stamp sets.
Oh, okay.
Sign and price marker sets. Fascinating letter styles, interesting edge stuff. And then there's quack medical devices.
Okay. those are highly intriguing to me.
This little beauty right here, if you read the book, will cure everything. In fact, it probably would cure COVID if you'd let it.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's the book, they finally banned them in the United States because they were so full of it. They don't do that. But so this was banned, but this right here is a brand new version of it. And the only thing they say is it might help with hair loss. And that's
really?
it. Yeah.
Well, I don't want that. I've lost all my hair, and it's one of the things I really like is that I don't have to worry about it anymore.
All it is really is a neon tube with only one electrode, and you hook it in. You plug it into what this is called a spark coil, which is a unit we use for testing neon, and it just buzzes a little bit. And you're supposed to drag it. And then these other two devices, virtually the same thing, just a different format. You actually pick that up and you'd pass it over your body supposedly, and it would fix things.
Okay, and then what we're looking at here is a case that he's got the rubber stamps in, and then these medical devices. The one has a handle on it that's about 12 inches long, just looks like a normal plastic handle with a little glass bulb on the end of it. And the other ones are boxes that are probably 18 inches long, 4 inches high, 4 inches wide, that have a bunch of tubes. You plug that thing in, and it looks to me like it'd be fairly heavy to just go passing over your body. But
the one is actually you just take the top part of it. And the rest of it's just a case. And I don't know how this one works actually. And that one actually kind of wants to work. But they're just an interesting side thing of what we've got. And then we've got a little display on gold leaf gilding for reverse on glass. This Wallace's Santa Fe sign is a reproduction, brand new reproduction that we made in the shop that is a reproduction of a sign that was in Bisbee, Arizona in 1900.
Oh, and then you got one for the fire engine also.
This was actually the fire engine one was a test panel to work out details on a fire engine that we restored.
Oh, okay.
So these were actually samples, but it's a nice sample.
It is.
And we used techniques that you rarely ever use, haven't really been used hardly at all in the last 50 or 60 years.
And now are these on plastic?
These are all that's on reverse on glass, the Wallace's.
Okay.
These are on just surface gilded on metal panels that are painted with a gloss automotive finish.
And both of these there's a lot of red, there's a little bit of green on the Wallace's ones, billiards candy. But they're real pretty red with gold inlay.
And those are that was typical. You'd see a lot of that kind of stuff. And the thing with gold is back in the day before we had all the technology, the gold would pick up light and catch your eye just driving by. And that's why there was a lot of gold back for storefront, for windows, for store windows, because gold would catch your eye like other things wouldn't.
Really? I never even thought about something like that.
Banks.
Right. You see a lot of the...
Right. And it conveys the feeling of value and expense and quality and and it is because it's an expensive process to do.
Huh. Okay.
This is basically my sign painter area. I've got a lettering kit, a sign kit from a guy that used to work for me that passed his way, and his wife gave us his kit. But this would be a kit you'd carry out on a job, and you would have all your brushes, paint, not all your paint, but all your brushes, all your stuff, so you could go out and actually set up and letter a window or letter a truck on site.
A lot of those guys kind of mixed their own paint at the time, too, didn't they?
There was a time, in the period of time that I've been in the business,
You already had all your pre-mixed paints.
They used to take pigments and mix it into white lead. Yeah, that was long since gone. But when I got into the business, some of these cans actually still contain lead. Yeah.
Okay.
Contains lead. These were something somebody gave me. When I first started painting, they still had lead in the paint. But since then, they took that all out. And then the quality of the paint went down, and it doesn't hold up as well, and it fades really fast. So
Okay.
this is a demo thing that we built that just exhibits different kinds of lighting. That's meant to be for incandescent bulbs, flashing. This is neon with a speller in it that allows you to have it spell through and show you 3 different colors of what is called classic glass. Classic glass costs about 10 times as much as regular neon glass.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what's the difference?
It's Italian made, and the glass is actually colored, whereas a lot of times we generate a lot of color, but when you look at the glass when it's off, it's white, maybe yellow.
Okay.
But this is actually, this stuff, I'll pay $5 or $6 for a piece of normal glass. I'll pay close to 50 a stick for this stuff. Yeah, it's silly. And then here we've got fluorescents, which were a big part of the industry for years, and now LEDs. Right.
The LEDs are really bright.
Yeah, and they all serve their purpose. We still use all of these techniques, but it's it's just a matter of applying the right thing to the right job.
Right.
Right.
Now, neon was used a long time ago, like the 30s and 40s, it seems to me.
The basic story in the States is neon hit here in the mid-20s. And
Okay.
the story of the first neon sign has been the first neon sign in the United States has been somewhat debated. They used to say it was a Packard dealership in LA.
Okay.
But it's pretty obvious that it probably started someplace earlier than that. It was about 1925 to 27 when it got to the United States. I think the first time they actually showed neon was at the World's Fair in I think Paris in about 1910.
Okay.
But it took a few years to hit the United States, but once it got here, it kind of exploded. Neon really starts to show up probably in the early 1930s, and the earliest examples we have of neon still surviving in Tucson is from about 1935.
Okay.
So 30s on, up into the 50s into the 60s, and then they started getting a bad rep in movies. You had the flickering neon sign and the strip clubs and the bars and all that stuff. And then plastic came into the industry, and everything went to this less is more thing. And though neon was still being used to light all this stuff, it was undercover, so you didn't see the neon. But neon stayed as an important part of the sign industry until about 15 years ago, when LEDs finally started to get introduced. And it ended up that one of the guys that works for me now got laid off about 10 or 12 years ago from a big shop in Tucson, and I hired him after my neon guy passed away unexpectedly, and I keep him busy 50 hours a week every week. So we're still doing a lot of neon, but we are my regular sign shop is the only sign shop in Tucson that's doing neon. So we have we get a lot of work. We stay really busy, and I've got one guy full time, another one part time, and another one even more part time. So I've got 3 guys helping get us caught up with the neon.
Wow.
Okay, so this area, these are largely signs that are still out in the community, and these are miniatures of them.
Okay.
What we did is the first 4 you've got on the wall here, the Magic Carpet, the Canyon State, the Tropicana, and Medinas, are all signs that were saved. They got held on to, and Tucson Historic Preservation came up with the funding to have these signs restored and reinstalled at the Pima College campus downtown. So these are all on display. They're there all the time, and lit in the evening. So that's the story with those. This cactus with Tucson on it, this is a miniature of a 30-foot tall cactus I built for a guy that designed it for a public art project, and we make this cactus and actually sell it. We've probably built 20 or 25 of them, and that's a popular one. The Elkhorn Mall sign, though it's not neon, went up in 1962. It came down in 2000. They took it and laid it behind the mall and left it there for 12 years. And they decided to put it back up, and the city had come up with an amendment to the code that would allow you to do that. So we went, picked it up, reworked it, rewired it, refaced it, and reinstalled it back out at the Elkhorn Mall. So it's back up again. And the sign, the beauty of the Elkhorn Mall sign is it was kind of edgy when it was put up. It reached the point where it started to look a little dated, but it still looks good. So
Right.
it has stood the test of time. You know, it's weathered going through that. A lot of times stuff goes through and it just it doesn't look correct anymore. But the Elcon, I'd be proud to design that and put it back up today.
Right.
And it's back up.
Well,
And
so that sat behind a building for 12 years?
it laid on the ground.
It laid on the ground.
Right. These sections are 12 foot tall and 3 foot wide in real life. It's a big sign. This is 35 foot to right here.
Wow.
And there's another spear that sticks out the top, which puts it up at about 45 feet. It's a big sign.
And it was just laying out in the
just
concrete,
laid
but
out,
you guys
yeah.
were able to restore it.
We went out there, all the metal with the exception of one of the cabinets was intact. We had to cut away some rust and put new metal in the back of it. We actually used the original pole.
Wow.
It was amazing that it survived. We found a dead cat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it smelled to high heaven. And you find all sorts of stuff in old signs. Dead birds, live birds.
Really?
Pigeon nests 12 inches deep.
That were built while they were standing still.
They build, the bird, somebody leaves
Right.
the cover off, the birds move in, they leave and it can be pretty. And that's one of the adventures of restoring an old sign. Because we've done, in Tucson, we've restored 24 signs, neons, including the Elcon, so 23 including the Elcon. And you run into all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
So this diving girl is actually the poster child of neon signs in Tucson. Wasn't that big, wasn't that special, but the attorneys bought this building and it had been basically a flop house. It had gotten to the point where there was transients living in it. They put $1 million in it about 35 years ago, and they refused to take the sign down, and the city refused to let them do anything with it. Well, finally, the city had the wisdom to say, we need an amendment to the code that allows you to take down your historic sign, refurbish it, and put it back up again. And this was the second sign that used that policy. So we went down there, took the sign completely down, reworked the whole thing, put it back together again. And so this is what it looked like.
And how big is this sign in real life?
The diving girl herself is about 6 foot tall. So using that as in its parts. So there's a bunch of different things. And then we adaptively reused it. It said swimming pool at the top, and then it had refrigerated, and then it had the name of the hotel, which was the Pueblo. We put everything back the way it was, but where it said refrigerated, we put the attorney's name.
Oh, okay.
And they had people coming in looking for rooms.
Really?
Oh yeah. And now it's a Vita Hair Institute, and they have people coming in looking for a room, and it's a hair place.
Wow. And this is a lady standing on a diving board with her arms out in front of her like she's going to dive.
And in reality, she doesn't have neon on her, but we put neon on her.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is another one that came down. This used to be up on Speedway, and this is another one. It came down, in like 97. And we had a couple come through. Their family actually owned the restaurant and wanted us to make a miniature, so we made one for them and then made a second one for us.
Okay. And this one here is Vince's Fine Italian Food, Cocktails, and Banquet Room, and it's got a chef that blinks on and off on top.
And he used to lift his fork up and bring this pasta out of the spaghetti.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
So you can time your signs so that the lights shine in different sequences.
You can put in a mechanical flasher. So the Tiki Motel, which used to be out in the city, is now in my backyard.
Okay. The whole motel?
No, just the sign. Just the sign. Which is unfortunate. We wanted to keep it out there. The intent is to see if we can get the city to allow us to reinstall it in the median near where the hotel was at, so that we keep them out in the community. Because we don't really want them here. We'd like to see them out,
right,
in the city, because that's what adds the flavor to the city.
Oh, definitely. Neon is really really neat.
So this area here is,
and you got a bucking horse.
Yeah. So
with a rider on it.
This is the El Corral restaurant. It's up on the north side of town, and the original bucking horse Bronco was made for a movie that was filmed in Tucson, and then the restaurant bought it, and it was on a piece of wood, and they put it up in front of their restaurant, and the wood finally reached the point where it was just falling apart. So they hired us to rework it and put it on a metal background, and then they hired us to make it double-sided. So we made a second side. So it's It's up on the north side of town. It's on River Road. It's an active restaurant. So it is old, but its background's a little twisted.
Okay.
It came from a movie, and we remade the second side of it. Over here, I've got my beer, wine, alcohol, cigarettes, and tobacco stuff. And you have to have a certain amount of neon beer signs, but this is enough. I don't need a lot more beer signs.
You've only got, what, 20 of them in here or something?
It's a mixed bag, but it represents neon and the history of neon. And then I've got small back bar stuff, things that are, just interesting, things that we've gathered up. I mean, I've picked up, if it's an interesting piece, it doesn't have to be that old if it's interesting.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
really, that's it.
Oh, man. There's not a lot of neon here, but there's a lot of sign.
I do that every time I walk in. No, and that's what I was talking about, though we have a collection of thermometers. We have stuff that's related to jewelry because I've got Bulova and watch repair signs. And that corner over there I have, and I don't have anything on right now, but over there we concentrated all of our soda stuff into one area.
Okay.
So we've gotten, which used to be spread out through the entire museum. During the pandemic, we decided that it would make more sense if we brought it together. So we've managed to get that aligned, and we're expanding our thermometer collection, and we'll get more of those, but they've all got advertising on it. So
and when he says thermometers, he's talking about the kind that you saw in front of the old grocery store that was a small neighborhood grocery store that had the big, 2 foot tall, 8 inch wide thermometers with the Nesbits or Rolling Rock or Salem cigarettes or Coca-Cola or whatever on the advertisement with the thermometer in the middle of it.
Right. So we've had some in the past, and we're slowly but surely adding more to that. And some of them are old. You take the Nesbits. I barely remember Nesbits, but that's an interesting piece, and that's got some history on it.
And then he's got a television here that
plays I Love Lucy.
It plays I Love Lucy, probably
black and white.
The same type of television that I Love Lucy first came out on.
Pretty much.
It's pretty neat. It's in a wood box. It's probably 2 foot by 2 foot and 2 foot deep, and the screen on it is only 10 inches round. But it's a neat looking TV.
We get people sitting there watching.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah.
I Love Lucy's one of the best.
This area in here used to be what we called the no wall, which was no parking, no swimming, keep out, back up. We've expanded the beer stuff into this area and concentrated it into a smaller section, but it's part of the industry.
Right. And these are just basically your road signs, or the kind that you'd see hanging on a fence, or
some of this would have been hand painted, and that's part of the
property boundary from the National Forest.
Another property boundary from the National Forest, and we just concentrated together. So we'll step out back.
Now we're seeing the big signs.
Some of them, yes.
And so these here are all ones that you've managed to salvage.
Yeah, and a lot of this is stuff that happened in the last 5 or 6 years. I didn't have this stuff 10 years ago.
You got an Arby's roast beef sandwich. Now, is that sign was taken down, obviously.
We took it down. The Arby's, I don't quite understand what happened. Either was on a month-to-month lease or just coasted. They told them to move out, and they tore it down to build a Longhorn Steakhouse.
Okay.
And so the folks had the sign, and were hoping, first called me and wanted to know if I wanted to buy it. And I said, so tell me what's going on. And they said, well, we have to move. And I said, okay. I said, they'd like to repurpose it. Well, there's no way the city or the county would let us put it back up again because it's so much bigger than the code was. So I called the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, which is the largest neon museum in the country. And I said, I've got a 17-foot Arby's. And he goes, I didn't know they made them that small.
Really?
He's got two 24s.
Wow.
So anyway, we took it down. We left it in my yard. And about, 4 months after we actually opened the museum, we moved it over here and got it up and running. But it's makes a statement. It's a nice piece.
Well, and it's a combination of the incandescent blinking lights and the neon.
Yeah, it's a classic, and there's still a few of them around the country. You still see one once in a while, but they're slowly but surely getting to Oh, where is it? That one. The plastic-faced ones.
Uh-huh.
Now they've gone to all plastic. I've got 3 Arby's. I've got the big one. I've got one outside the fence right there. And then I've got this one. And I had a chance to buy another one, or not buy. I had a chance to get another one, and I finally said, I got enough. But they switched from the neon ones to this, and now they've switched to the full-on plastic.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, they just keep updating their look. So this sign came down last night.
Oh.
This was downtown Tucson. I don't know what happened. The Crescent Smoke Shop had been in Tucson since 1908 and downtown, and they have a second location. They closed it up, and we had to get it down, and they offered to give it to us. So we went down last night and took it down.
I'm trying to block the wind.
Yeah, okay. I understand.
Because the wind's going to come through my microphone here.
So
I didn't
anyway,
bring my little wind socks.
We just got that sign, and it's not that old. This thing is 2007.
Okay.
But it's all neon. It's, you know, it's correctly made. So, you know, it's a nice piece, and that's what's been happening. And back here behind you, we won't spend a lot of time out here. Back here is the tiki we just talked about.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one that just came down. And then on the walls, I've got stuff that eventually we will get repurposed. We're building a town.
Oh.
And that's what this is. This is going to.
Okay, that's a storefront.
That's our storefronts. There's going to be 4 storefronts, 8 sides, because we're going to have stuff on both sides, and maybe 10 if I split them. So we're going to be putting signs on these storefronts and then building displays in the storefronts. And there'll be, you know, doorways that you can walk through from one side to the other.
Oh, that'll be so cool.
Well, and I got to do something. I'm running out of walls. But we've got a couple of signs. I've got one sign already pretty much pinpointed for this that we'll be restoring and putting back up again. And I've got back in the corner, I've got a sign called from the grill, which was downtown Tucson, and I'm building a grill-looking brushed aluminum facade for that one.
Oh, okay.
So there'll be each of them will have a slightly different look.
You got them all lit up, and
well, we're trying to show you.
This is really cool.
You might want to take a look at this. We've got 2 flashers out here. This is what actually controls the light bulbs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm looking in the inside of the sign at the electronics, and there's a cam in there that rotates around and hits switches. And, well, it's just like car points.
It's basic. This one is a lot like car points, and that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, you know, and you've got your little part of the distributor in there that wobbles and opens and closes points. And when they open and close, they turn the lights on.
And I'm guessing this to be about 60 years old.
They would have been very familiar with points at that point in time.
This one over here, on the other hand, is a little newer. This is probably 1970, so about 50 years old. It does the same thing, but it does it differently.
It does it on a wobble.
Yeah.
There's a plate in there that must have
I don't have any idea how that's.
Must have a bearing or something underneath that causes it to lift and close, and then it's like pushing on piano keys. It lifts and separates the points.
They still make parts for this, and they still make this.
Really?
Yeah, so I can buy that flasher if it ever fails. I thought that that one is not available. If it dies, I pretty much have to build my own parts. This one, on the other hand, is still manufactured, and I can still buy pieces for it.
That is so cool that the way that switch works.
I'd never seen one before. I pulled it out of the side, thought that needs to be out here.
Yeah, that is so cool to see the way that they timed the switch, for the lights to flash.
And it's 50 years old.
We come right on in to see Mr. KFC. Now I'm seeing old signs and new signs.
There's a mix of stuff here. There's a mix. You know, the KFC bucket was something that there was a shop in town here that had it and had the 76 ball, which is right over here.
The old 76 gas station.
He had
them. Now, is 76 gas stations still around? I see them so very rarely.
I think they transitioned into something else, but I think there's still a little shred of them left.
I remember back when I was a kid, you could get the little 76 foam ball to stick on top of your antenna.
We have those in the gift shop.
Oh, do you?
The only problem is they don't have antennas anymore.
Well, some people do.
We put them on the end of pencils. Oh, goodness.
You got Ronald McDonald sitting over here in a chair with the sandwich sign behind him.
Picked him up in Hatch, New Mexico.
Okay, and Dickie's barbecue and Pizza Hut, H&R Block.
So again, these are plastic signs, but you know.
And what's this one? This one's
was
old.
Some kind of a. It isn't that old,
isn't it?
No, the image is tired because it's been out in the sun, but it's probably 15 or 20 years old.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, it got weathered out. We took it down because we were taking down the sign to put up something new, and he just was. You know, again, it doesn't. In my mind, if it's good, it doesn't have to be that old.
Right.
As long as it's interesting, and he's interesting.
And it's a guy carrying a box, blue and red colors.
Pretty sure it was a pack and ship place.
Okay.
That's probably what it was. And I have my hardware store, my gas station.
Oh yeah. He's got a bunch of wrenches in here. Box with Meyer Cord decal letters. Now, was that for making signs?
Yeah, no, they were water transfer decals.
Oh, okay.
And so you could go in if you needed a boat number, you could pick out what your boat number was and apply them to the. At least I think they were water transfer, and then you'd have to put a clear coat on them.
Okay, it says they're 3 inches or larger, required by Federal Boating Act of 1958. So, yeah,
that was what it was for. That doesn't have anything in it, but the box is interesting. And that, again, that's why we picked the thing up. I have a Sputnik.
Yeah, you do.
I do. It's a small one. They called them sign toppers. You'd add them to your sign to attract attention.
Okay.
You know, they were something you'd go in, look in a catalog, find it, you know, order it. They'd send it out to you. You'd put it on the top of your sign.
And it's a ball that's probably 2 foot in diameter with a bunch of little things sticking out of it, like, well, it kind of looks like a coronavirus with lights on the end, and they blink and flash. And
so we had to rewire it. It came just the fiberglass and just the ball. There wasn't any bulb. There wasn't any sockets in there, any wiring.
Really?
And it had but the mechanical flasher was in there. I bought a new one and put it in to replace what was there.
I'd walk by something like that in an old yard and just try to figure out what the heck that was, and it never dawned on me that that's.
And it's got bullet holes in it. And I've got a couple signs with bullet holes in them. And then
I think that's kind of a common thing, isn't it?
It tends to be a little more. So this is my little bit of gas and oil stuff. I don't actively collect gas and oil, but I had just enough. So we built the gas station facade to house it, and then we decided we needed to get a pump. So we. And
then you had to put the top on the lighted top.
That's a repop. That's a reproduction piece, but it at least finishes the.
Those globes are worth a lot of money nowadays.
Real ones are.
Real ones are. Yeah. You got a pay phone.
Yeah, I
haven't seen one of those in about 10 years, 20 years.
It rings every so often, and if you pick it up, it's Lily Tomlin.
Oh, really?
Doing the operator.
One ringy dingy, two. Yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, I remember that.
So this is a sign that we salvaged that I priced out restoring, and it was too much money, and they had somebody make a plastic one, so when it came down, the shop that took it down called us. I went over and picked it up. We put neon on it, got it rewired so it was working. This one came with 2 pigeons live, and about 10 inches of pigeon nests in the bottom.
Really?
And the transformers are about this big. This sign takes 2 transformers to run. We dug 4 out of the pigeon nests in the bottom. They just kept putting new ones on, taking the old ones out, and it had rotted. This is aluminum, which is rare back then. This had rotted because the pigeon nest has an acidicness to it that actually attacked the aluminum and actually caused part of it to rot. Yeah, I didn't know that would happen. I brought this sign's 8.5, 9 foot tall and 7 foot wide.
Right.
After we got all the pigeon nests and all the transformers out of it, I brought it in here. I carried it in by myself. I just picked it up. There's no weight to it.
Really? The aluminum,
very little. There was only 2 pieces of steel, and one of them was taken out. It doesn't weigh anything. It's a really, really light gauge aluminum. But it's got a nice design. It's going to be in here. We're not going to restore it. We're going to leave it looking aged.
Right. And it says Valencia Market on it.
Right. This was one of 65 to 75 Chinese markets that were in Tucson.
Oh, okay.
They came out here. The Chinese helped build the railroad, and they also knew how, they once the railroad was done, they went into business, and they developed a relationship with the Hispanic community. And so they flourished. There was a lot of Chinese markets. I have ABC Market up here. That was a Chinese market.
Okay.
And there's one more. What is it? It's going to take me a while to remember what it is. I think I've got parts of, there's another one called Jerry's, which was Jerry's Leho Market.
Okay.
And that was another.
And that's a big
Chinese
sign.
market. That was a big sign. The thing was, they'd redesigned the building in a streamlined look to unify it, and the letters are on the other side. But yeah, they're probably 2.5, 3 foot tall, all double stroke neon exposed kind of stuff. So what we've got going on over here is we have a neon bending demonstration area.
Okay.
And we have two volunteers that come in, and we have neon bending demos on Wednesdays and Fridays from 11 to 4, and Saturday from 11 to 4. And we've just now got everything up and running. What we're going to be doing is offering neon classes, actually working with actually bending glass.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the bending demos, they're a hit. We'll have 6 to 10 people sitting here watching the neon bending, and that both guys do a great job.
Wow.
But we just got all of the manifolds set up so that we can actually bend the glass, process it, and actually finish it off and get it lit.
Now, you use natural gas for your heat, or?
We do here because I don't have gas in the building.
Okay.
So I'm using propane.
Propane.
I'm using propane actually here. At my shop, we use natural gas.
Okay.
Propane, I think, burns a little hotter than natural gas does, but they learned how to adapt to it.
Is there problems with the temperature, ambient temperature and stuff as far as the glass cooling? Or it cools kind of on its own, it doesn't break?
It's a little cooler in here. They don't have much trouble with that.
Okay.
It's not really an issue.
Because I know I've heated glass before and it ends up just shattering on me, or...
It's... neon glass is considered soft glass.
Okay.
And that may be what the difference is.
Yeah, I have
no idea.
Because
it's designed to be able to be heated, and we don't have trouble with it heating and cooling. It doesn't, and we do sometimes have something used. If you use really old glass, or glass when it still had lead in it, sometimes the lead-based glass is hard. And sometimes the classic glass, the stuff we talked about early, that can be problematic. In fact, what my neon guys do is do a little bit of what they call tempering, which is heating up part of the glass before they ever start to bend it, and heat it up on both sides. And I think they're retempering the glass to make it a little bit more usable. That's Lily calling it. So we have this display over here. This is what we call our neon experience. And we built this to demonstrate the different colors, some of the different colors you can do with neon and some of the different colors you can do with argon. So if you see on the left here, the two orange-red tubes, that's neon. The two tubes over here that are the blue, that's argon. And that's neon in a clear tube and argon in a clear tube. But as you light these up, these are all different colors that we get from argon in different colored either tubes or different colored glass, different colors that have different phosphorus in them. If the top one, this is two different colors of white.
Okay.
This is a 3500, this is a 4500 white, and they look white when you don't light them, but the difference is the color is the phosphorus coating. And don't ask me how that works, because I can't tell you.
Okay,
But
I'm not going to. I didn't even have that on my radar to ask.
I took it out of your loop before you ever do it. Over here, these two units are yellow, but this is yellow, and it's yellow lit with blue, which to me seems wrong, but you still get yellow. But this glass is yellow with the phosphorus coating in it. This glass is yellow, but when you light it, you get what's called Veep green.
Yeah.
And it's got a different color phosphorus in it. And then when you get down here, these colors across the bottom, which are really rich, are again, these are the classic glass.
Okay.
And you get, the colors are richer.
Yeah.
A lot richer than anything else you see.
The other ones are almost kind of pastel.
And you'll notice there's 15 colors of units for neon.
Right.
15
for argon.
For argon, and 5 in the neon, because that's pretty much what happens is you can only do so many colors with neon, but you can do a lot more colors with argon. So though we call it neon, argon ends up being predominantly the gas that you use.
Okay. Wow.
And then here.
And so places that make, let's just say the neon or argon signs, they usually interchange the two gases, depending on what
It
they're
depends
building?
on what you're trying to achieve. You know, if you pick a specific color, you've got to use argon to get there.
Okay.
So it's just so here we have, this is an animated piece that I did just to help finish the display, and you can go 3, 2, 1 lift off, but that gets you the whole thing. So we've got a mechanical flasher that controls the transformers that turns on the different pieces as it flies around the moon.
Okay, and we've got a rocket diner moon in the middle with a rocket ship going around, and you can see the contrail kind of behind the rocket as it's going around in white, and we've got kind of an orangish red rocket and the green diner, and the flasher unit down here. You can see the points moving up and down as it rotates in order to put the light to all the different places so that it looks like your rocket's going around the moon.
And that's a 6-point contractor.
Okay.
That's the biggest one I've got. That's a brand new one. We bought it. I had it. I can actually have these designed to do what I want done, because I wanted this to come on and then the exhaust to come on, go off, and then go to the next one and go to the next one and work its way around. You know, it's old school, but they still make this little place called Great Lakes Sign Company in northern Michigan.
Okay.
And they actually bought out some of the other manufacturers, and that's why they still can provide the flasher we looked at in the Harleys.
Okay. Yeah. The flasher units look really kind of basic for the most
They
part.
are basic, but they're reliable.
It's just a point system.
I've got about 10 flashers that I've taken out, and though the points are burnt, but I can still buy points for them.
Right.
I've bugged them in; they've all taken off.
Can you just file them sometimes?
You know,
and have them work,
to a point, but there's a point where you got to stop
Right.
that. You know, you've gone beyond the limits of good taste, and yeah, you can't. You have to not do that. So.
And I guess that they'd have a tendency to wear where they're working, 12 hours a night or 14 hours a night.
If they're supposed to be oriented vertically so that the debris falls through them.
Right.
The way I've got that one set up is it's horizontal, but I wanted to be able to view it. But it's in a fairly contained, and it's not outside, so it's not the best setup. So Frankie and Johnny's Tavern is out of Salt Lake City. And when we decided we were going to do this, we went, we don't have any big signs. So we found this on eBay and bid on it and got it. And I looked at it and I thought, well, it must be 4 foot by 8 foot. It's 7 by 12 feet. I ended up having to take my small crane truck to Salt Lake City to pick it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I couldn't get it in a pickup truck.
That's a good drive from here.
It's a long haul. It's about 14 hours. We don't specifically chase signs from other areas because we've got plenty right here. So we were concerned about having enough impact, but I shouldn't have worried about it. You know, we had so much stuff has come in. I've got so much stuff in the backyard we haven't even touched yet, that still needs to be restored and refurbished. So it wasn't a concern, but it wasn't the time.
Right.
Because what are you going to do with 7,000 square foot if you don't have anything?
If you don't have anything to put in it.
So we had, we've got a Hollywood Video. I had 5 of those at one point because we took them down when they closed. I've sold 2 or 3 of them. I've got parts of one left, and then I've got this one. The Deonza Drive-In Theater was actually this theater, and they tore it down and built apartment complexes. And this is a little bit off the beaten path, but I had a guy loan this to it. It's a movie poster that they used to hang outside the movie theater downtown, and this is actually from the Fox Theater in Tucson. And they did these, and they're double-sided. They're on particle board. Yeah, the other one has, this is like you're never... What is it? What's it say? It's Jerry Lewis.
It's Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
Right.
And
you're never too young.
Okay.
And the other side has, it came from beneath the sea or something like that. But that's an interesting little, it's not neon, but it's signs.
Right. It's a sign.
It's signs, right.
A billboard or whatever you want to call it.
And then here we've got my Craycroft Baptist Church.
Right.
We drove by this one Sunday morning and went, God, if that ever comes down, I hope we can save it. And a month later, I get a call from this shop in town going, we've got the Craycroft Baptist Church trailer. It's on the trailer. Do you want it? It's like, it's neon. It's religious. I didn't have a religious neon to my name, and I wasn't going to get a Jesus.
And it's got a globe on top.
It's because they reach out to the world.
Oh, okay.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I got this little Lutheran church sign, so I did actually have a religious sign, but it wasn't neon. But that's local. That was Tucson.
Well, you have angel threads up here too.
Yeah, that's one I actually built. It was in one of the shopping centers here in town, and they closed. Here's something a little typical, actually. This sign, which is the Tucson Small Animal, when we got it, it said SPCA.
Okay.
We realized immediately that that's not what it said because the neon holes are in the wrong place.
Oh.
And with a little bit of research, I was able to determine through a friend of mine that it was built as the Tucson Small Animal Hospital in the late 40s. It was bought and renamed Desert Small Animal Hospital in the 60s. But in between, I started sanding, because that's what you do, to see if you can undercover. I started sanding, and I started uncovering animal control in blue and white. And I actually uncovered South Tucson Animal Control. And then I kept sanding, and it started to go this color, and I found small animal, and then I found hospital, and you focus around where the neon holes are at, because the neon is going to be where the lettering was at. So I just kept sanding until I started, and what it does is it slowly but surely starts to give you outlines, and as you follow the outlines, you can actually start to uncover the color and the layers and the outlines. So I uncovered Desert Small Animal, but that hole was in the wrong place.
Okay.
So I kept sanding, and I actually found Tucson underneath there.
And so that's the way the sign was in 1949. Then it went to Desert Small Animal in 1960, then South Tucson Animal Control
and South Tucson
in 1975.
South Tucson is a 1 mile square city landlocked inside of Tucson.
Kind of like
Tucson,
Guadalupe in
maybe
in Phoenix?
I suppose. Completely surrounded by Phoenix. So
that's interesting.
Somehow they ended up, I guess they needed a place for their animal control, so they drove through downtown up to where this building was at and used it for their place. I never saw it this way. I never knew that that was what the case was. But when I did get into it, there was a South Tucson logo, a decal stuck on there. So, but anyway, and we found a transformer in here dated from 1949. So, I know the date.
How cool is that?
That's kind of interesting. And this one over here, this is out of, the Pioneer Hotel is out of Globe, Arizona. And this was loaned to me by a guy up in Phoenix. He had actually stayed there in 1985 and paid $13.50 for the pleasure.
In 1985?
Yeah. Him and his girlfriend actually had to help make the bed. It wasn't a really busy hotel. Anyway, he goes back through Globe about 3 years later, and the sign's gone. He chases around, and he locates it. He locates it and finds it, and asks the guy, "What are you going to do with it?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to take it and sell it for scrap and get $10." And he goes, "I'll give you 20." Well, that was 30 years ago. He had it in his garage. He moved it a couple of times. We got connected through another project up in Phoenix, and he called me up and wanted to know if I wanted to loan it, if I could take it on loan. And I said, sure. So I went up to pick it up, and I got it out, and we set it up on the truck, and I went, this didn't say Pioneer Hotel originally, because you see the hole in the bottom of the P up here?
Right.
Okay, if you stand there and look up there and we walk back and forth a little bit, you should start to see the outline of a T in the paint. Can you see it? I can see it from right here. Do you see the T running up at an angle from that hole?
Right.
Okay, what this said was Terminal Hotel.
Terminal Hotel.
It was for the train terminal.
Oh.
I know, that's the same thing I got. Anyway, at some point, it must have sold. They renamed it. They left the sign basically alone and put Pioneer in, and if you look closely, you can see an ox pulling a wagon and a cactus and mountain and clouds. So they had it done professionally, but they didn't re-drill the hole. I did that. I put a new hole in, because to run the neon down to that hole for the word Pioneer was kind of stupid. So that hole would have been the original hole for the Terminal Hotel, and that hole over there was for the L in Terminal above the R. But that's a giveaway on that it's not the original message. And we've run into this before. I've found as many as 4 messages on the same sign, because they repaint the thing. So we got this from him. It didn't have any neon on it. We put the neon on it, and what happened? Okay, so what happened is they had it professionally done, At some point, the paint faded. They wanted the sign to look good, so they hired some kid with no talent to go up and paint the background blue. And then the blue faded away, so then the graphic starts to come back out again. So that's probably the third or fourth painting on the sign. It's
Terminal Motel.
I know.
That just doesn't seem like one you'd really get excited to stay at if you were from out of town.
So then we have a word search game where you can look up the names of some of the old hotels in Tucson. And then this is our Light Bright.
Okay.
And it's kind of a reverse. What you do is you don't poke holes in the paper. You actually pull the plugs out and you can make your own design.
Okay. And that's a nice big screen. That's a 4x8.
Yeah, it's a 4x8. That's 1,550 plugs.
You could be there a while.
Especially when somebody takes them all out.
Oh.
We had a party one night, and I walked in the next morning and went, oh, crap.
I'll bet you did.
It takes a half hour, 45 minutes to put 1,500 plugs back in again.
That's almost as bad as your teacher have you write, I won't do that again on the blackboard 100 times or something.
Yeah. And then we have, this is like concentration. You ever do that with cards when you were a kid?
Right.
Okay, so what there is, it's the alphabet 2 times, and it's on 4 sides, so you have to match it.
Okay.
So if you keep looking, eventually you will find
the two letters that match.
Right.
Well, I'm going to leave that one alone because concentration was never a game I was good at.
My wife beats me every time.
Well, anybody could beat me. I can't remember my name half the time.
So we've got a bar area with just signs that we've collected, and then this bar letters up here, which are animated. Those were actually from a store called Beauty Brands, and I repurposed them, and I drilled the holes and put the light bulbs in and set it up with a flasher so it spells.
You got some nice big signs here, too. One of them says your mom wants you.
I think that came from a Jimmy John's.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It ended up in my shop, and we couldn't figure out whose it was, so we brought it over here.
You've got bartending and Sierra Nevada, Budweiser, Eat, cocktails.
Molina's Midway was a restaurant. I think they've been in Tucson since the 50s, and they closed 4 or 5 years ago, and I was hired to redo the sign in neon. So when we went out, I told the guys, I said, try to save the neon. And we were putting a new face on, and I didn't expect this, but they actually drilled out the rivets and took the face and put the new face on. So what we did was we built a new cabinet, mounted the face and the neon on there. So it's almost the original sign.
Right.
It's got the face and the neon, and then we put new transformers in and rewired the whole thing.
And then when they went out of business, you got the sign?
They had closed and new people moved in, so we put the new sign up. They went out and we took everything off and were able to put it back together again. A lot of locals remember Molina's.
Okay.
We built the theater marquee. We built that so that when we have parties, we can say, welcome, happy birthday, or happy New Year, or something like that. And in the interim, we put our joke up there.
Okay. Now, I got a question about this party thing. You've got parties going on here, and it looks to me like you've got a lot of breakables and some of that kind of stuff. What kind of parties are you doing?
We've only broke 2 pieces of neon so far.
Really?
So far. People are afraid of neon. They're afraid they're going to get shocked.
Oh, so well, that's nice.
They accidentally break it, but they don't generally, it's not normally an issue. And, when we set tables and chairs up, we typically try to keep them away from things. And I put some shrouds up on a couple of things because we had, part of my Jerry's sign got broke because somebody backed into it. And then somebody broke, not dancing, but broke something on that sign, and I had to fix it. But really, you don't have that much trouble with it.
And then you just set up tables and chairs in here, and you have, 100-person parties?
We can handle 100 here, and if you spill out in the backyard, we could probably do 200.
Okay.
And we currently can seat about 125.
Okay.
We are. And we use the classic tables. We leave those up generally because they're kind of charming.
Right.
And then we have a collection of the regular plastic tables, round or rectangular, and the chairs to go with it, because the parties are, people enjoy it.
Right.
It's fun.
Well, this would be a neat place to have a company party, or
there's nothing like this. Any other questions back here?
No, I think we've kind of covered a bunch of this.
Take you up to the gift shop.
Okay, so tell us about this little area.
So this is really my wife's department, but this is part of the gift shop. So these are things that we sell through the gift shop. We sell some of the miniature neons that we make
Okay.
as we go, and then there's art pieces that, Jesus, is this my wife's work? I can't remember. Yes, those are my wife's
Okay.
that she has done. So we've got a mishmash of things here.
You got these chairs. What are they?
They're lighted. They light.
They light?
They light. I don't think they're practical. I don't think they'd hold up as far as, but they've got lights.
Oh, they got a red. It's a clear acrylic of some sorts or plastic.
They sound really suspicious, though.
Oh,
Afraid you're gonna say
that kind of crackles when you
Yeah,
push
kinda
on it, but they've
crackles.
got a little bit of sponge to them.
A little bit.
And they're red and green. And then you got a little.
and they light up. So
Yeah.
you know what the heck?
How cool is that?
That's cool.
And you got all kinds of cool stuff here in your gift shop.
We have a mixed bag. There's a lot of the stuff is related to signs, advertising, or city of Tucson, and jewelry. My sister-in-law makes a lot of that stuff, and then we pick up stuff as we go, and then we've got advertising and sign-related things and other stuff.
You've got little signs, like the diving girl and some of that kind of stuff. The Tucson cactus sign and
Lamps
lamps.
with Tucson signs on them. Puzzles. We've got books. We've got hand towels with Tucson graphics on them. And we have done a couple of different puzzles of the museum or of the city of Tucson, and we have other stuff that relates to it, and shirts and caps and cups, and
Now I'm seeing a lot of Route 66 stuff. Did Route 66 come through Tucson?
went through Flagstaff.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no.
I was
But
having a problem with that.
There's a nostalgic thing going on.
Right.
We have mouse pads. Here's your 76 ball.
Oh, okay.
There it is.
There we go.
There it is.
I might have to put one of those on my antenna. I think I've got
You
an
actually have
antenna still.
antenna. So we sell, the books are good, a lot of reference stuff that you're not going to find other places. We've got books that aren't available online.
Okay.
So we try to, if it's available online, we don't even carry it. But if it's something that's, specific to Tucson, or something that, we know the author and we're carrying it that way, and they're not selling it through Amazon.
Right.
We carry it. Otherwise, you just buy it on Amazon. Little oddball stuff, things that, postcards,
magnets. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to look around a little bit here after we get through. Well, so this is pretty much
This is pretty much it.
Pretty much it. There's a lot here. I shouldn't say pretty much
No,
it
it's pretty
because
much.
there's a lot here. Well, I really appreciate your time
my
taking
pleasure.
it with us. Your museum is opened
Wednesday through Saturday, 10 to 4.
Wednesday through Saturday, 10 to 4.
Right.
Okay. And you're pretty easy to find. GPS brought us straight here, and you got a great big neon sign out
We
front.
do have that.
And
get
a
through
really good-looking sign.
Thank you.
And you guys have a website?
Yes. Ignite. I'm pretty sure it's ignitemuseum.com. I never go there myself. My wife does that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's
And you're on Facebook also? or-
ignitemuseum.com. I'm on Facebook. We're on
ignitemuseum.com.
Instagram.
Okay,
So I handle the Facebook. She handles the Instagram. And then we do have the website.
cool. So if anybody's looking for this, it's just Google it,
Should be
and
able
it'll
to
show
find
up. It was easy to find. It's a beautiful museum. There's so much to see here. And I so appreciate your time taking it with us
pleasure.
today and showing us what all you have to offer the public.
You're welcome.
So I finish out my podcasts. I always say the world is full of wonder. People need to get out and explore. The world of neon is fascinating.
It is.
And
It is.
everybody have an absolutely wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?